I'm pretty sure that you already know what I'm going to tell you. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry for that. I'm not going to tell you anything new, but knowing is one thing. The acting part is the harder thing. That's the challenge. And to get into action, we have to be convinced. And a professor told me one time, this is Dr. Broughton, who was a professor at university. And he told me a few years ago that the cost of change has to be less than the cost of doing nothing. And I think that only means that changing is painful. So when we talk about soil compaction, well, soil compaction is only putting in light the relationship that we have with our soul. Does that make sense to you? If you don't answer, I'm going to start talking about the Canadians of Montreal. Or worse, I could do it in French. This is where I'm from, Quebec. This is over 4,000 kilometers from here. 40 days walking. That's what Google told me. It also told me that I couldn't get here by plane. And this is how it looks like at home. So we had a very strange winter, snow, then it went down ice, and this is how the fields look like. And of course, I can talk about compaction 4,000 kilometers away from home. Doesn't mean I solved everything at home. I wanted to show you all sorts. This is a kind of field that we also have, the same kind of problem that we meet everywhere, everywhere around the world. It is a common thing. In the area where I live, it's the most high productive grain production area in Quebec, and it was estimated that over 80% of that surface is impacted by compaction. So now we have to turn around and say, what is it that we can do about that? And very often I ask the farmer I work with 4 questions, which are, what is it that you like about farming? What is it that you don't like? What is it that you would be willing to do? And what is it that you won't be willing to do? And you know, the won't be willing, it's most of the time it's something like, I don't want to get rid of my tractor, which is sometimes. This is one practice that we've been doing. We're doing cover crops, and we're fortunate enough that we could do cover crops within a year of our commercial crop. So for this example here, I have this farmer planted cereal rye last fall within the rows of corn that will be there. So he just planted corn over there. You could see the corn coming up. The rye was killed. Then you could see corn really nice there, rye going down. Beginning of June, that's just about 3 weeks after the rye was burned down, you could see all these little middens already made up. And by June 24th, there was no residue left on the ground. And of course, I'm just showing you like one of my healthiest soil I've been working with, just after showing you all the problems that we could have. A problem I also very often have is that when I come here and listen to other people before, then I want to answer the question. You know, I'm in the back there, I hear a question, I want to answer it. So somebody talk about the cattle compacting soil. Do you remember that, or did I switch room? So somebody said that cattle compacted soil. Is that what we said? Do you believe that? Good, because this shows you that it doesn't come back. It does have an effect on the soil surface. The first few centimeters are really going to be a bit more compacted, but really down there, no problem. And the year there, 58, 99, and 2020 are the weight of the tractors, the impact of the increased impact of the tractors over time. So cattle, no real problem. Somebody talked about the water availability, the water that's in the soil, the root system. I'm going to try to talk to you about, well, I'm not going to try, I'm going to talk to you about compaction and everything that is being impacted by compaction and what we can do about it. And this is oil forage radishes, and it was a really good stand. We could go in the field. The farmers was very, very proud to show me his field, something like 3 to 4 foot standing radishes. And of course, I'm always carrying my shovel. And we started to dig, and everywhere, this is how we see the radishes in the soil. So crops can get their water. This radishes could get its water down to 8 feet, but it has to reach the 8 feet, right? Thank you very much when you talked about water holding capacity, and I think we're exactly on the same line. Water movement through a well-structured soil. Uh, this is how it's working really. We need first to have a good surface infiltration. We need that water to go through the soil, and because it's going to do so, it's going to be filling the water table. And once this one is filled, if we have a good porosity, and I'm always talking about continuous porosity, to be able to have that capillarity. Capillarity will only work if the porosity of our soil is continuous. And this is what you see in that picture here. You could see all these blue lines, which are the airspace of a very, very well structured soil being filled with water at that time. But these are all continuous. So as the water will go down, it will then be able to be going up by capillarity because of the continuity. And so better capillarity, a very good, well-structured soil. So that means you have a big part of that water holding capacity. It's bigger. Only 45% of the water holding capacity is available to plant. Only 45% of this water holding capacity will be available to plant. And if you have a very healthy soil, then 25% you can get because of all the microorganisms, especially the mycorrhiza. So if you have a very good web of mycorrhiza in your soil, you can get 25% more water. As if you have a very bad soil, well, then low infiltration, the water table will not rise. So not only do you're lacking a lot of water infiltration, but you're also lacking on the capillary sides. And of course, because the porosity is not continuous, capillarity is not going to be working. When we talk about soil real potential, when I talk about soil profile, I'm always talking about at least 30 inches. And so you could see in that picture here that this is the whole area that should be available for a root system to get in. And if you look at it closely, you can see that you see the root path going very deep in that soil. And down there, there's still roots going there. So that means I can look at all that soil profile. I'm dividing that into the growth zone optimization. So that's all the work that we think we have to do to make sure that we can grow something. So we go into tillages, we go in spring preparation, the planting, taking care of all the weeds and diseases, and then we're going to be harvesting. But by doing so, what is really happening is that we are having all those collateral damages. So we're working that 6 to 8 to 10 inches of soil on top, but then we're having an effect on the whole soil profile. Erosion, soil surface crusting, soil surface pulverization, compaction. So what do we do next? Well, we're going to get into what I call the costly intervention zone. So we're getting into subsoiling, ripping, drainage, leveling. We're getting into all of those nutrients or miracle cure that we can get into our soil in order to have it grow better. But yet, we're not getting back to it. So that's what we're going to talk. And for Nadia, my 40 minutes starts now. This is the first slide. I see that they all agree. Okay. Soil compaction is putting in light our relationship with soil. So we have two soils here, exactly the same series of soil, the same types of soil. And on one side, you see, on both sides, what you see is a earthworm channel, but on one side, you see that this channel is very well used by the few roots that could get through the soil. As on the other side, you could see that even though you have that root, that highway for the roots, there is still a lot of space so that the roots can go elsewhere. What is interesting and to look at it is that you could see here, this picture shows biopores that were made by previous roots. So every time we have a root in our soil, when it dies, the pore that it created is going to stay there for a year, maybe 2 years, becoming a highway for next year root system. So the root system is really something that's going to keep giving us good growth. If you look a bit further, where there is root, you'll have the hair. So this is because what I wanted to show here is that the root system really is there to feed the plant. So there is mineral, there is nutrients in the soil, but they're in the soil, it's not really moving really fast. So we need the root to be able to get to these nutrients. And to get there, we have the hair that can be there. And we also have all the mycorrhiza's web that is installing themselves. So if you look at a root stem, you see the root there that can be, that's the other thing we want to look at. The nutrients, they will get to the root system by the microbes, but they also have a diffusion rate. Have you ever calculated how fast any nutrients are diffusing themselves in the soil? So this is where you have that data, nitrates. 0.9 to 2.9 millimeter per day. If you have a little nitrogen molecule somewhere, it will move around just by 0.9 to 2.9 millimeters a day. So if the roots doesn't get close to it, it's not going to get that nutrient. It's exactly the same with the phosphorus and the potassium. As a matter of fact, if you calculate the phosphorus over a whole season, where phosphorus is, it's going to diffuse by just about 1/16 of an inch over a season, a growing season. So I need to have a very good root web to get to that, to help that. So I need the root, I look at the air, and then you have the mycorrhiza that is also. So I'm just saying that the whole root system is something that we should be looking at. And we should really understand that if you look at the whole system, then the sun, photosynthesis, carbon gets in the plant, feeds the root system, feeds the microbes that in turn would feed back the plant, and it will also feed a lot of water. So I need to make sure that the soil is able to provide a good root growth area. Maximize root growth. 3 things that we should be looking at. The first one is making sure there's enough space. I really liked what Fred said this morning about working in very, very bad condition. And I understand that. Me, for myself, have a big land at home that I own, a big 165 acre, not thousands of acres, just acres. This is how big the land is. And I don't own a lot of machinery. So every fall time when the combine comes in and I looked at it coming in, I said, I've got to find smaller stuff to get into my field. This is what's happening. If you have a well-structured soil, only half of it should be mineral. If it's compacted, then you can get up to 80%. So what I just showed you is that, that little portion, that blue portion over there, that's the portion where you're going to have your roots to grow. So smaller that portion is, smaller root, smaller yield at the same time. Here is two, it's the different series of soil. It's exactly the same type of soil. The only thing that differs from one to the other is the management practices. On one side, you have 0.05 meter per day infiltration. On the other side, it's 1 meter per day infiltration. And I just want to show you that if we use the proper management practice, we can get a lot better soil. This is the art part, the changing part. Does that make any sense to you? And again, I showed you that a few minutes ago. This is the profile of the soil, and this is how the water management is going on in the very good soil. So which one would you like to cultivate? I speak in French now and didn't realize. You don't want to cultivate either side? God. Smaller roots grown, poor aeration, poor infiltration, lower yield, higher cost. What should we do to protect our soil porosity? So we should look at three things. We should keep our soil covered. We should look at our rotation to make sure that we have living roots as much as possible. And we should look at our machinery. That's the most of the time I wish to take. Now, the first step is to balance our tractor. How many of you guys and girls have weighed their tractor lately? One guy over there. How much do you weigh? How much does your tractor weigh? Heavy. Doesn't even want to put a name on, it's just like, it's heavy, but it's healthy. Weigh the tractor. The first step after we weigh the tractor is to balance the tractor to make sure that we have the good traction on that. You have no idea how many tractors I've been weighing, and the proportion is like 20% in front and 80% in the back. And we go in the field and nothing's no problem at all. So balance the tractor to get the proper traction. Adjust air pressure to the weight per wheel. How many of you guys adjust the air pressure every day? So this guy weighs his tractor and this one adjusts the air pressure. What about the other guys? You weigh the tractor too? Great. The weight changes with respect to whatever you're pulling in the back. But how many people during the winter time, the time that we have more time, we weigh tractors, we do the implement, and then we say with that implement on that tractor, you need to put that amount of weight in front so that your tractor is balanced, and then the amount of weight on every wheel permits you to go to 6 pounds of air in your tire. How many of you guys have 6 pounds of air in your tires? The same two guys. This guy's still at the waiting stage. The next one I'm going to visit. And we want to aim at a maximum of 12.5 pounds. This is what we're aiming at. I'm not saying you should put 12.5. The air pressure should be adjusted to the weight that is going on the wheel. But as good as it can be, if you can get it low, you have to get it low. Why? Well, the impact is right over there. If the air pressure is very high, then you have a lot more pressure at the soil surface. And so you're compacting your soil surface, and then you're going to have more crusting, more water erosion, and at the same time, less germination. So that if the air pressure is lower, then you can see the slope, and you can see that the porosity is a lot less affected at the surface of the soil. That means this kind of look. And so with 9 pounds, with respect to 23 pounds, with the same weight on these wheels, we have almost 40% larger surface area. So, and because we're dealing with a tire, we have that hair in the tire which acts like a cloud on top of the soil. So we are protecting the surface of the soil. Surface compaction. When we talk about compaction, we have to divide in our mind the surface compaction and the subsurface compaction. So what does it do when we have it pulverized? structure. So we measured that. We measured it for different crops. I'm only showing it to you with respect to wheat. In a poor surface area, we could have up to 90% less wheat root growth, which means probably a little less yield. I would think so. When we talk about wheat, almost 85 to 90%, 80 to 90% of the wheat growth of wheat will be up in the first foot. You agree with me? You guys, please. Do you agree with me?
Yes.
You don't have to agree with me, but these are researchers from Australia who designed all of that and measured it, and I believe them. And so 80 to 90% of the root is going to be within the first 12 inches. And so you could say, well, why bother having more than 12 inches of soil profile? In the situation of drought, the 3% of the root system that's going to be below 80 centimeters, which is about two and a half feet, will provide 20% of the water needed for the wheat to grow. So the whole root system, even though 80 to 90% is in the top 12 inches, the roots that can get to the lower profile will provide a lot of water to our plant. Sometimes we forget about these root systems. Did you know that when you look at root system, you only see a third of them? Did you know? No. When you take a root system out, if you dig it nicely and as gentle as you want, and you take it out, you will only see 30% of the root system, because 60% of all these root systems are too small for us to see it with our bare eyes. So that's all. Then we're saying also to protect our soil porosity, to slow the speed. Why do we want to slow the speed? Because the air pressure in our tire will be defined by the weight on the tire and by the speed that we're going to be going with. So usually we will try to adjust the air pressure with respect to the speed in the road. But you're making money in the field. So maybe we should go a little slower in the road to be able to have a better air pressure in our tire. Work in optimal condition and respect a maximum of 3.5 tons, 7,700 pounds per wheel. Per wheel, not per axle. And this is the kind of this is a kind of exercise that I do with the farmers I'm working with. I go there, I weigh the tractor, took the type of tires, take all measurement, and then with all of that, then I get some numbers. So in that case here, the first axle is 4,000 kilograms, so just about 2,000 kilograms per wheel. The top pressure is the pressure that was in the tire when I got to the farmer. The bottom pressure is the pressure that could be put in the tire. And these pressure, it's not like I said 12.5, you see a 6-pound air pressure in the first tire in the front of the tractor, but it is the pressure that is recommended by the manufacturer of that type of tire. I never take it for granted. I always go to that table and I always had 2 pounds just to make sure. So when they call me in the morning on Sunday at 4 o'clock and they say, you want to talk about air pressure, come and see my tractor. The wheels are out. That's not my fault. So 17, excuse me? Yeah, I take really good care of my reputation. 17 pounds, that's what he put in. He could have put in 6 pounds. So you see already, just by lowering down the pressure, he's going to do a lot of good to the soil surface. And then you have 8,000 pounds, which is 4,000 kilograms per pound per wheel. at the back axle, and on that manure spreader, we're up to 10,000 kilograms, which is 5,000 kilograms per wheel. And what we do with that is we measure the effect of these weight in the soil. And what we want to look at, and the literature review, the people that are working a lot, doing a lot of measurement, what we want to see is less than 14.5 pounds applied at soil surface, which is the yellow area, and we want to see less than 7.25 pounds applied at 20 inches, which is where the line is, and which is a green area. So you can see here that for the first axle, just by lowering down the pressure in the tire, not only do I protect my soil surface, but I'm also protecting my subsoil compaction. Do you see that? Please, guys, please, please, please. Do you see that? Do you believe it? Are you convinced? Are you going to change your air pressure? Yes, 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 nope. Be honest. I know you guys. Oh, I'll get to that. I knew you would ask that question. I have it just for you. I'll get to it, okay? So now I look at the back axle, 8,000, 4,000 kilogram per wheel. And again, you can see the impact of just working on the air pressure. And now I'm 5,000 kilogram on the manure spreader. And you could see that even if I get the air pressure down, I'm still going to have a little bit of trouble with that thing. But I'm having a lot of trouble with that 35 pounds air pressure in the manure spreader. So this is something that you could start looking at. The impact of that here, you can see it. This shows the increase in bulk density of your soil. So if you have a very dry soil, of course, it will not affect deep, but it will affect very strongly at the soil surface. And we don't want that soil surface to be impacted too much. So the best thing is to get to be in your field in the optimal conditions so that the treads of your tractors are marrying your soils to get the most surface area as a contact to get the least possible impact with pressure. Does that make sense? I'm going to find someone and I'm going to talk to one person. We're talking about the tractors. We talked about the impact of air pressure. We talked about the impact of the weight per wheel, surface compaction, subsurface compaction. We talked about the impact on the bulk density. Now, what is it that I can do? So in that case, what I could do is to add an axle to the manure spreader, not get it bigger to get more shit into it. Just add a set of wheel onto it. And just by doing so, this is what's going to be happening. So taking the weight out, we already have a good impact on the subsoil compaction, and putting on the right pressure in the tire, we're solving all our problem. You look exactly like the farmers I work with. Yeah, girl. Yeah, nice try. Now, they're in Quebec. I'm not sure here. I haven't met the tire dealer yet. Maybe there's some in this area. They'll catch me when I go out. But they're selling more and more wider and wider and wider tires. Is it better than dual tires? Yes. Okay. I just told you that we have to decrease the weight per tire. So this is the case here. I have one big tire. In that example, it's 800 millimeter wide. And then on the other side, I put dual tires, 400 millimeter each. So I have the same surface area that's going to be impacted. But by using a dual strategy, what I'm doing is I'm splitting in half the weight per wheel. So you see exactly what's going on here. So instead of buying those big, big, big wheels, if you could use dual tires, it'll be better for your soil than the big, big, big wheel. We read the same research. No, it's true. It's worse for two things. The first thing is that they make us believe that because of the area, bigger surface area, but that surface area, or even though it's longer, 90 inches in some cases, there's only 30% of it that is effective with the weight. And we did measure that because usually I'm having the weight in my car, and every time I see a tractor, I stop by and weigh and weigh and weigh. And so what we did here is that we did weigh this machine here. It weighs 6,500 kilograms per track. And then if you look at the bottom of it, this is what we read. 40 kilograms in the front big wheel, 3,000, and then 270 kilograms at the back one. So all the weight is concentrated in the middle. Not only is it concentrated, but within the meter, you have twice that punch. You know, when you go in the field with your wheel, it goes in and it does a punch, and then a few meters away, there's another one coming in the back. But with the track, it's just like it's killing the soil at that time. This is what they use to compact roads. This is the same technique they use to compact roads. I can assure you that my husband's a road constructor. Good fight in sight all the time. What have you done today? Against compaction, for compaction, against compaction, for compaction. And so what it does is it does this kind of print on the soil surface. So at the soil surface, this is what is going to be happening. I told you I don't want to see more than the yellow, the small yellowing. And now I have the yellow, the orange, the red, and the blue. And so this is going through all your fields. Why were the track invented? Traction. Why did we need so much traction? Because they were built for tanks, and these tanks were going through desert and mud where there was no soil cohesion. And so most of the time when you're using these tracks, if you are in a soil that lacks cohesion, that means you shouldn't be in your field. And so we did the same exact. So now we're 43 pounds at soil surface. What is it that I wanted to have the most? 14 and a half minus 2. This is the rule of thumb. I don't want to have more than 14 and a half in the soil surface, so I take out 2 for the wheel, the air pressure in the tire. And now I'm up to 43 pounds. Is there anyone with tracks here? Phew, not that much. I gave that talk in Alberta a few years ago, and then no one, it was just getting worse and worse. And then I realized every guy there had tracks and only tracks. Oh, yeah, I know. One track is way too much. There's 4 in that tractor. Maybe that'll be the last image. What do you see here? Yeah, so you see those really nice track that were supposed to be so good for soil, but this guy put on 2 subsoil shank right in the back of the tracks. So believe me, the tracks don't compact with the subsoil just in the back of it. They don't compact anymore. I'll leave you there. There's much more. That's my fault, but I'm very nice. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm always I get a little carried away. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Odette. Do you want to dare a question?
Oh,
Or are we opening up the Pandora's box? Okay, one question.
So I got triples and I'm making a mess, and my neighbor has tracks. And it's summer.
Well, you know, it uses tracks, and if it's very, very wet, there's no soil cohesion. So that's why it seems to be better. But if we go in and we took all these bulk density, and with time, it's going to get worse. It is going to get worse. And that's why it's so difficult to talk about soil compaction. Because at one point, what happened is that we're putting a little compaction here, and then we're solving it with plowing and tillage and subsoil, but we're still compacting and compacting and compacting. And at one point, the soil is so compacted that we don't see the impact of compaction anymore, because it's just becoming a road. And then, well, the summer's too dry, the summer's too wet. And yeah, the thing I see, I've been working in soil health for the past 30 years, and the farmers I've worked with that have put very good health practices, with time, they're always better than their neighbor with or without tracks. It's just a matter of being in good shape. And it's working, guys. A healthy soil, you're going to make a lot more money, and you're going to be a lot less stressed with a healthy soil. But it's going to take time. I always say to my farmers, you know, when you come on, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry about, I shouldn't say that story, but I will, because farming is still a guy stuff. Most of the time, there's a lot of, in Quebec, the guys are outside there with the tractors. That's where I am with the tractors. And the ladies take care of the numbers and the thinking a bit. But, you know, when a guy comes in after work, 9 o'clock in the morning, and there's a little note on the table saying, I'm gone, don't call me. And I'll leave you everything, the house, the chairs, the table, the food in the fridge. I'm just gone. And then they turn out and says, I'm going to send her flowers. She's going to come back. No, you've been eating. You've been, I not mean eating, but you know, the relationship was being damaged for over 10, 20 years. It's going to take time if you want to get her back, or him, or more than flowers. The whole plant, the roots. You've got to go back to all of that healing processes. That's the same with our soil. When we damage our soil for a year, it will take 5 to 8 years to undo that. We have to take that time. This is a challenge. And what I want to say is that there are ways to do that that is not hurting. There are ways to do that that in time you don't see any decrease of your actual yield, but within 8 to 5 years, then things are going to happen, and it says, oh God, finally that dumb little lady was right. Thank you.